Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women in Motorsports. Joe Samuel here, along with Daniel and Siri from Racers, the girls behind the helmet. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching our show. And of course, a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, calling the show Mark and Robin, for helping us stay on the air right here on the Grid Network. Daniel, one of the big race weekends before the full racing season really started to take impact. But right now, Sebring 1000 kick off the WEC series, and for the Iron Dames, their season in WEC, and Doriane Pin kicking off her season in quite a stunning fashion.
Oh yes, definitely. It was the Super Sebring weekend, so a very very big weekend for sports car racing across the world with the double round of both the WEC and IMSA racing together, and the Iron Dames were one of the I think the only team with the same lineup to do both the WEC and the IMSA race. So that was a big weekend for them, and of course they were racing in both the WEC and in the IMSA with two different cars, which makes a lot of difference because it's a very different car that is it gets to be driven on with very different driving style. Also with the Porsche, it was their very first race with the Porsche GT car in for WEC. Since last year, obviously they were racing the Ferrari 488 GT. And now this year, since they've become the Lamborghini manufacturer team, but Lamborghini does not have a GTE car, and this is the last year for WEC for GTE cars. So they're switching to a GTE Porsche for WEC, while they are racing in the Lamborghini GT3 car. That will be also raced next year in WEC, when in WEC there will be GT3 cars. So it was quite a challenging weekend from the beginning for them, but they knew they had the pace in the WEC race with the Porsche, because it was straight from the prologue last week. We reported also on this program that they had a great pace in the Porsche car for the WEC race. Again, they were really fast in practice after the prologue. Sarah Bobby put the car on pole position for the WEC race. And that was also a very very good result for Iron Dame, because they showed really that since they changed the brand, they remained on top of the series. So in GT they finished last year with a pole position in Bahrain, and they started the season with a pole position in Sebring with a different car. And Sarah Bobby is so far the only driver to ever accomplish that, to claim back-to-back pole position in WEC with two different car manufacturers. So going into the race, Sarah Bobby really had one of her stunning stints at the beginning of the race, over 2 hours at the start of the race. And she initially battled with Ben Keating with the Chevrolet Corvette for the first place. Then she got for first place, and she really pulled away. She at one point after they had a good strategy after a caution, a well-timed caution, they had over 40 seconds gap to the second place Chevrolet, and I was really pulling away. So it was really looking to be one of the great races for Iron Dames, and possibly their first win in WEC. When at the first driver change, Rahel Fry got into the car, she was really fast as well. She was also extending that gap. Unfortunately, she had a very minor mistake, but a mistake that many others did throughout the weekend, and with different teams, and all in the same place. At turn one, they went a little bit. They ran a bit wide on that curb, and hit just after the curb. For the wide variety of cars throughout the two weekends, in both in WEC and in IMSA, nothing happened. For Rahel, she was super unlucky because the whole rear end of the car and the diffuser and the rear bumper came loose somehow, and so they had to pit to repair the car, and they lost 2 laps from there, and that obviously was a difficult race for their coming back from 10th in class in GTE, and to recover from that. But still, they finished 8th after they never gave up in the 8-hour race. Great race for all of them. after just that tiny mistake that, as I said, many others did to no consequence. So it was really bad luck for Rahel and for the Dames. And they finished P8. So not the results they wanted, because of course they had the pace to win and they showed it in practice and in qualifying, but still a solid result of the season that really shows that they can fight for the victories in WEC. There was also Lilu Wadu in GTE. Unfortunately, a race ended before it even started because her teammate that actually put the car in fourth place in qualifying. So very good qualifying for Luis Perez Companc. The Argentinian driver went off after 4 laps, rolled over, destroyed the car. So unluckily for Lilu, her season was her season opener was over before it even started. And then, as you mentioned, Joe, also Doriane Pin was in the race in the LMP2 category. She was really making her debut in prototypes in the LMP2. And she had one of the most fantastic races, really. She led the race at one point. They started P10 with Daniele, former F1 driver, taking the start in the Prema car, LMP2 car, and then it was over to Doriane. She really made up into first place at one point, and they were really cycling back and forth from first place to fourth place throughout the all 8-hour race. In the end, with 10 minutes to go, they went back into first place because of the Yota car pitted for a splash and go. And at one point, it really seemed that they could have won the race. With 2 minutes to go, they also had to pit for a splash of fuel. So eventually, there was a third place for Doriane, but it was a third place, a podium at debut in LMP2, which was amazing, really. And for most of the race, she was the fastest of the trio, with also Borzolotti and Kvyat, so a very strong trio. And Doriane at their first race was up there with times. It was 1/10 of Kvyat at the end of the race. So really, really strong start of the season for Doriane Pin.
Very impressive start for Doriane Pin. And of course, Sebring 1000. What a race weekend that was. We'll come back to the Sebring 12 hours shortly. Another big race going on the East Coast, especially in the Southeast. Very busy weekend over there. Atlanta Motor Speedway had all 3 of the NASCAR National Touring divisions there: the Cup Series, the Xfinity Series, and the Truck Series. And Hailie Deegan was in the Truck Series race. Had to start 32nd, way in the back. Now, of course, she has been struggling this season with just having bad luck, getting caught up in crashes, not getting to see the start she wanted with this new team, Thor Sport. However, this racetrack, Atlanta Motor Speedway, it's a 1.5 mile oval, which many will compare to Charlotte, Texas. But with the banking, it's almost a mini super speedway. So you got the same characteristic as Daytona, Talladega. This is only the second year of this configuration. And for the Truck Series, this race was just marred by caution flags after caution flags. We didn't get a whole lot of racing in up until the third stage, where we started having a little bit more green flag laps just because of the number of cautions and trucks that had dropped out of the race. Hailie Deegan, she was able to avoid a lot of trouble, keep climbing up the field, and finish 12th place, one of the better finishes of this year. And overall, Hailie Deegan, she is still 21st in points. She only has 39 points, so she's over 90 points away from the points leader. Of course, she got to get up into the playoffs, and right now with a truck season, short season, it looks like the best way for her to get into the playoffs will be getting a win. One of the big things, Daniel, when it comes to getting a win, it is just competitive all over. Whereas a NASCAR Cup Series, the Truck Series, the playoff format that they have there, just I think adds the pressure, not just for Hailie, but any driver that has had a rough start to the season. Sebring 12 hours, of course, that is the second race of the year for IMSA. So it's always very exciting for drivers that had a rough race at Daytona to come back in Sebring. Before we go into that, a comment in the channel from Ben Schneider. Solid race for Deegan. Brought the truck home in one piece, just outside his top 10. Still a ways to go, but no doubt a step in the right direction. Highly agree, and especially, as I mentioned, this race was just marred with so many caution flags. It could have been easily getting caught up in another crash. Has to be a confidence boost, Daniel, when a driver that has had bad luck of getting crashes go have a clean race, solid finish, and overall, when it comes to a clean race, everyone's talking about the finish at the Sebring 12 hours. That finish with the three hypercars all getting each other, not exactly the most clean, but we saw overall some great racing in Sebring 12 hours.
Oh yes, absolutely. It was really a spectacular race. As you mentioned, it's always a race that the teams that didn't do particularly well at the season opening in Daytona have the opportunity to to bounce back. For Iron Dames, it was a tough first race in Daytona. It was their first race in the Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo, and they also had another tough one in Sebring. This time it was no for reliability issues like it was in Daytona, and really like the other end of the spectrum with the WEC race. For WEC, they were really fighting on the top end throughout the race. If it wasn't for that bad luck after that mistake, they could have probably won the race. In IMSA, they really never had a chance to fight for a BOP. For really, the Lamborghini BOP is struggling a lot. The Lamborghini teams with this BOP in IMSA. They really had a tough weekend. They were really never really competitive. Struggled even to get into the top 10, and it was a very clean race for them, for all three of them. Rahel Fry had a really solid stint. She was the fastest of the trio. Michelle Gattingen some really strong lap times as well. Sarah Bobby had a super clean start and first spot of the race. Not a mistake from them, not a mistake for the team, but unfortunately the Lamborghini Huracan in IMSA in GTD, it's just not quite competitive as they expected for the BOP, really. So hopefully there will be some balancing going on as the season progresses. Of course, it was the second race of the Michelin Endurance Cup, so only two remaining. Which is of course not great as a start for them in IMSA, but surely they have some time to recover. Other teams with female drivers on the grid were, of course, there was the two Acuras, the 93 of Ashton Harrison that had a really strong race once again after Daytona. But she was very unlucky because with 7 hours into the race, she was behind the wheel. She was really going strong and also cycling back and forth from 5th to 3rd, really during the first part of the race. Unfortunately, during the 6th and 7th hour of the race, there were a lot of cautions. And there was a car pile up into turn 3 and at the restart, and she couldn't really do anything and to avoid an accident happening just in front of her. So unfortunately she had a contact, and the front end of the car was too damaged to continue for the number 93 Acura Racer's Edge with Taylor with Andretti Win Taylor Racing. While the number 66 Acura, the Gradient Racing that is shared between Catherine Legg, Shayna Monk, they will be doing the whole season, so also the sprint races, which is great. And during the endurance races, there's also Mark Miller. And he was obviously also with them in Sebring. They had also a good race, I would say, a solid good race for them. Sheena Monk had her very first qualifying in GT3. This is also only her second ever race in GT3 because she made her debut in Daytona after stepping up from the Michelin Pilot Challenge where she drove in the GS class last year. And she did her first qualifying. And it was not particularly great because she had a red flag and some traffic. So started from P19, but really in her first stint, she managed to climb into the top 10. That was really a good race for Sheena Monk. She's really showing that she's a consistent driver. She's not making mistakes, even though she's very inexperienced. So very good start of the season for Sheena Monk. Unfortunately for Catherine Legg, she was once again quite unfortunate because once she started her first stint, the car was already damaged because they got run into from a prototype from the number 6 Porsche. And that was really unfortunate for them because it kind of destroyed all the front right hand of the car, and also the headlights and so on. And so they had to repair the car during one of the pit stops. But Catherine really said that with the damaged car, there was really no aero, no handling from that car. And when you still have like 7 hours of racing in that conditions, of course the car was struggling. For Catherine, that she's very experienced in GT3, was she immediately said that the car was handling very poorly, and that there was no error. For Sheena, that she's a little bit more inexperienced and coming from GT4, so she's not used to all that downforce. So it really didn't make she at least she said so. It didn't make as much of a difference for her. But of course, the car was struggling during the race. They still, came home with a P11. Which is decent, I would say, especially because they needed all the points that they couldn't bag from this race, as they will be doing the full season, also the sprint races. So hopefully we will see some more luck for Catherine and Sheena coming into the next round that will be in Long Beach.
Long Beach, the next round for IMSA. Of course, we know that's also going to be a future stop for the NTT IndyCar Series, where we're going to have Indy Next as well. One of the big things, of course, in Indy Next, Jamie Chadwick there, W Series champion. Everyone's talking about F1 Academy. The full driver lineup has been announced. Marta Garcia took the final seat that was up for grabs. That was with Team Prima. So she joins Prima. Daniel, Marta Garcia from the W Series. She's one of those drivers where a lot of people felt like she was going to be very much in contention for a championship in the W Series. We know the season didn't exactly work out that way. Jamie Chadwick dominated, some bad luck. Now that she's with F1 Academy, Prima, and we have these separate teams where you got Prima, MP, Campos, Art, and Carlin. Do you feel she could be a contender for the championship in the first season of F1 Academy?
I definitely think so. Of course, she's in one of the best teams, with Prema being very experienced in Formula 4 machinery, and Marta is really experienced, of course. She's one of the 9 drivers out of the 15 confirmed for the inaugural season of the F1 Academy to already have even Formula regional machinery experience. She also raced in Spanish Formula 4 in 2017 and 2018, so kind of experience also in those kind of cars. Of course, it's going to be the new car, the new Titus one, but still, I think Marta Garcia, Abby Pulling, Nerea Marti, they're all drivers that pretty much everyone agree. Also, Hamza Kubaisi, as she's recovering from her injury. All drivers that everyone is kind of predicting to be fighting at the top. But of course, there are a lot of really interesting drivers. So it's difficult to do predictions. But Marta Garcia is looking very strong in that Prema. That's for sure.
And looking at all the team lineups, Daniel, you mentioned the number of drivers. We have 6 former W Series drivers. 5 of them raced in W Series last year. The one exception, Megan Gilks, who, of course, was in the first season, has a non-championship points race win in the W Series. Prima has 2 W Series drivers from last year, Marta Garcia, Bianca Bustamante. There's Art that doesn't have a W Series driver on their lineup. Do you feel having 2 W Series drivers from last year in the lineup could be sort of an advantage for Prima?
Not well. I wouldn't say that it's an advantage, because of course there are some other teams that also had drivers like Amdal Kubaisi, for example, that has a lot of experience in Formula 4, and last year she was racing in Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine, so which is the same car as the W Series. But it obviously is mixed gender, and she also has some race victories in Formula 4. Podium finish in the Italian Formula 4. So I would say also not necessarily, coming from W Series gets you an advantage in F1 Academy. But for drivers like, for example, also Abby Pulling, that she was also very competitive in the British Formula 4. That coming from a strong season in Formula 4. that might be an advantage for coming into the F1 Academy. But really, it's difficult to predict. For example, Lena Buller, she has a couple of seasons in Formula Regional European Championship, and she's stepping back to in a sense to Formula 4. But she has quite a good experience, even though she has never raced in W Series. So I believe that we are going to see some possibly some surprises, especially in the first rounds of the season. But who knows? I think Prema definitely has an interesting lineup because with Marta Garcia and Bianca Bustamante, Bianca did a very good progression during the Formula 4 UAE season in the winter. So that could also be interesting. And also they have Chloe Chong, that is the only driver that is effectively making the step up from karting. So I think that's a good mix of talents there, but also some other teams like MP with the two Kubasi sisters and Art with Lena Buller. Kerry Schreiner also is very experienced in GT3, but who knows what she will be doing in Formula 4. So it's going to be really interesting to learn about these drivers in the opening rounds of the season.
And the opening round for the F1 Academy is going to be Austria, Red Bull Ring, April 28th to 29th. Very excited about that because we're going to be following that weekend and all F1 Academy news as we work towards the season starting up in April, which is already less than a month away from when we'll be talking about the first race being completed. So we're very excited about that. I encourage everyone to subscribe right here on YouTube. Daniel, this race weekend, what are some of the big races you're going to be following?
Well, this weekend we have the 24-hour series at Mugello for the 12-hour of Mugello. Last year won by Samantha Tan with her historic first win for the BMW M4 GT3. So of course this year there's not Samantha is preparing for next round of the GT America next weekend, so she's not here in Mugello. But we have Alaya Kolok, a driver that is racing in GT4 with Bugira Racing, and she is last year she was doing Euro NASCAR. So kind of interesting to see her racing this year in GT4 and a full season entry as well. Then we have Chantal Prince racing in GT3 in the O4 Racing Mercedes. And then we have, of course, the USF 2000, the Pro 2000 with, of course, Lindsay Brewer, that she had a pretty solid start of the season at St. Pete during the weekend that also opened the IndyCar season. We have the Ultimate Cup Championship with Karen Gaillard as a young Swiss driver that she will be making her debut in prototypes. And a few more other interesting races. I think it's going to be probably not one of these weekends with the huge championships like was last weekend with the IMSA WEC, but it's a good weekend to focus a little bit more on some of the smaller championships that also always produce some really interesting talents that we will see possibly in the future in bigger championships.
And of course, also I know some of the races I'll be following: NHRA, Arizona Nationals. Of course, Brittany Forsyth, the defending champion, she's going to be back at the track. Erica Anders and Alexa DeJoria, who is off to a really strong start in funny car. So it's going to be really interesting to see how her season starts up. And we encourage everyone to be sure to visit the website Racers Behind the Helmet. Get the full calendar of all the females racing each and every week. You can follow each race live, see which drivers are in the field, and don't forget to check out all the articles on racersbehindthehelmet.com. And of course, definitely be sure to follow them on social media as well too. All great stories, news updates, and some drivers we haven't talked about in a while. Belen Garcia, Daniel, who's off to seem to be a pretty impressive start in sports car racing. We know she had a couple of good runs. Very excited for her. And overall, we encourage everyone to join their mailing list so you get updates throughout the year. And be sure to subscribe to us right here on YouTube. don't miss any of our programs throughout the year. We have all sorts of motorsports coverage with the grid ranking, the endurance performance index. So if this is your first time watching, be sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and share our channel with your friends, family members that are into motorsports. Help us grow this channel. And with a big thank you to our Patreon subscribers, calling the show, Mark and Robin, and our newest one, David, for investing in the Grid Network each and every once. You too can invest into the Grid Network monthly to Patreon or a one-time contribution through Buy Me a Coffee. You set the amount. You can even buy coffee for a particular person here on the Grid Network. These fine folks have bought us coffee this year, and it's big thank you to everyone that bought us coffee during our Daytona 500 pre-race show. For Daniel and Zeri at Racers, the girls behind the helmet, I'm Joe Samdiego. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time and enjoy the races. Thank you for watching us right here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and check out some of our other videos, including Life on the Grid, where we interview folks from the motorsports industry. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.